Kevin Spacey's trying to limit the testimony of a key witness in his upcoming sexual assault trial, testimony that could arguably change the whole case. Journalist Meghann Cuniff comes on to discuss. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. So the actor is facing a civil sexual assault trial next week out in New York, and his accuser, Anthony Rapp, is suing Spacey for $40 million. He claims that this assault happened back in 1986 when he was just 14 years old. The two were working on Broadway on different productions, and Spacey has emphatically denied this happening, says this was no assault whatsoever. But now Spacey's lawyers are doing something interesting. They're actually trying to limit the testimony of a key expert who had testified in Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal sex trafficking case. So this is called a motion in limine. It's basically trying to prevent certain evidence from being seen by the jury. It's very common in these kinds of litigations, but this could seriously impact how this trial might unfold. So to talk about what this could mean, I'm joined right now by journalist Meghann Cuniff, who wrote a great piece on this on Law&Crime.com. Meghann, great to have you back here on Sidebar.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you.
All right, let's get into it. So Spacey's lawyers, they filed this motion seeking to limit the testimony of Lisa Rocio. I might be saying that a bit wrong. Who is she and what are they trying to do here?
She is a psychologist. She's got an office up in Rhode Island, and she's done a lot of work in a lot of different cases. She testifies as an expert in court. She was an expert for the prosecution in the Maxwell trial. And it looks like she does a lot of different types of testimony regarding sexual abuse victims. In the Maxwell trial, she didn't talk about any victims specifically related to Maxwell. She talked more about the grooming procedure in general that sex abusers might take. Whereas in this case, she actually met with Anthony Rapp 9.5 hours over 3 days on Zoom and really talked to him about what happened between him and Spacey, everything like that, and did an analysis of him and then also of the allegations that Spacey's lawyers say really step over the line of what she should be able to testify about. They say that she really should not be able to testify about the credibility or whether she thinks something actually happened or what she thinks happened back then.
So in other words, she shouldn't be allowed to testify whether or not Anthony Rapp is credible.
Exactly.
And she had testified to not something different in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, but would you argue that what she testified to in Maxwell was important for the prosecution's case? I mean, for me, when I'm looking at this, I feel she could be a vital witness, because if this testimony is not limited to say what her observations were of Rapp, if he was telling the truth or not, that could be important for a jury.
Absolutely. I really think she was a key witness for the prosecution in the Maxwell case. And while her testimony might be looking a little different in this case, it's still pivotal testimony for Anthony Rapp, and to get an expert up there who's really spent time with him and analyzed him. I mean, a lot of the times we'll hear criticism about an expert saying, oh, the expert never actually met with the person. They only reviewed transcripts of medical records, that kind of thing. But here, this doctor actually met with Anthony Rapp and did her own assessment.
So according to Spacey's attorneys in their memorandum, they said that she admitted that she has no expert qualifications in determining whether an act of past sexual abuse actually occurred, that she explicitly admitted it is not part of her role as a treating therapist to determine whether someone's claims of past sexual abuse are credible. If they're right, Meghann, and you tell me if they're right about this, it seems the judge is not going to allow her to testify about any of this.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like we're going to see some kind of limiting order on her testimony. We're definitely going to be hearing from her if Anthony Rapp wants to call her, because Spacey's attorneys even acknowledge in there that she will be able to testify about emotional trauma, that kind of thing. But yeah, the testimony about the credibility and whether this event actually happened, I think the judge is definitely going to have some things to consider here, and the testimony probably won't go as far as the report that she issued or her deposition kind of indicated it.
My understanding is his defense team has been quite busy. They've been filing motion after motion, and I will tell you from the outside, it doesn't look like the easiest case for the plaintiff side. You're dealing with a very old claim. On top of that, my understanding is that the defense attorneys kind of said this could be the next Johnny Depp trial, maybe not in terms of the attention, but you had somebody who Johnny Depp, everybody thought that he did that. Trial comes along, he changes the narrative. They're saying this could be the same kind of thing with Kevin Spacey. Do you see that? I mean, what should we know about the defense's case and Kevin Spacey's lawyers?
Exactly. I mean, I've heard that Spacey's lead lawyer wishes that she could help him in the case over in London, because she just thinks that he is wrongfully accused, and she's looking forward to seeing him vindicated. She was recently interviewed by the Los Angeles Daily Journal, kind of a newspaper for the judiciary, for their top 100 lawyers of the year, and she talked about the Spacey case. And like you said, she drew comparisons to Johnny Depp's situation and just kind of the public outcry that he faced before his claims and all the evidence was really aired at trial. And unfortunately, the situation is different here. Whereas in federal court, there are going to be no cameras or anything like that. But I think we're going to be hearing a lot of reports about how the evidence comes in, and how that looks for Spacey. I will say that the lawyers out here in California, they'll be, I'm assuming, flying to New York next week to get set up, but they're very well respected. They're not a high big name firm or a real mainstream firm, so I think sometimes they get overlooked. But Jennifer Keller, Kevin Spacey's main lawyer, is widely considered one of the top trial attorneys in the country. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up with Rapp's lawyers, who I think are very well experienced, but have a lot of experience in state court and some in federal too. But those can be totally different situations. And Jennifer is just an ace, in all respects. So I think it will be a good trial and an interesting trial for sure.
I'm not surprised Kevin Spacey is able to retain some of the highest quality attorneys. Shocker there, once an A-list actor. I will ask you a question about something else, and just to let everybody know, his attorneys have filed other motions to limit other evidence from coming in. For example, Rapp's lawyers shouldn't reference or shouldn't be allowed to reference other allegations against Spacey, including accusations from Justin Dawes and Andrew Holtzman. They both say Spacey sexually assaulted them back in 1981. So we're going to see how that shakes up. There was something interesting that I saw in your article. There's some discussion about the credibility of a journalist, Adam Very, who, my understanding again, was the person that first reported Spacey's allegations back in 2017. Is there a credibility issue here?
It really looks like he's kind of been thrust in the middle of this. And I mean, he has his own lawyer and is being supported by his news organizations. And the judge did say overall that he appears to have adhered to journalistic principles of not allowing Rapp to review the story, things like that. But one thing that struck me was that he's known Rapp for years, that they're friends, and that their correspondence went back years before this and was not about Spacey in particular, and that wasn't disclosed in the original article. So that seems like something that journalistically you would imagine that the writer of such kind of a controversial story like that would be more upfront about his relationship with Rapp. But it sounds like the judge kind of went back and forth um, on what actually happened here and did adhere to the confidentiality. Rapp had just put some information forth for in-cam review. Actually, he had withheld the identity of some of the confidential sources, and the judge did say that that was all in keeping, that he did have journalistic privilege to do that, and his lawyer really emphasized the importance to Adam Very, who's the journalist, of protecting his confidential sources. But it looks like in the in-camera review to the judge, there was some stuff that the journalist lawyer submitted acknowledging that it wasn't confidential news gathering materials. They argued it was news gathering materials, but admitted it wasn't confidential. And there were a few things that the judge did order released. It sounds like the vast majority of what Spacey wanted from the journalist was not released, but there are a few text messages and other correspondence that the judge said could be used to kind of question his credibility and whether he would have a reason to leave certain details out or not include certain details that could lead to questions. One was Rapp's allegation about the Tony Awards, about seeing him at the Tony Awards. There's a text message exchange in there where Adam says, we've been unable to place him at the Tony Awards, so we think we might kind of gloss over that detail. I mean, he doesn't say it exactly like that.
What does that mean? What does that mean, place him at the Tony Awards?
He was as a journalist, he was trying to independently verify that Kevin Spacey did attend the Tony Awards. I think it was 2008. Just to, as all journalists do when they're dealing with these kind of Me Too stories, they want to fact check everything. If somebody says, I saw him at the Tony Awards in 2008, they have to go find something that also places him at the Tony Awards in 2008. And they weren't able to do that. So the text message shows him telling Rapp that, they think that they're going to not mention that or just describe it as an award show, because putting that out there and having it not verified just gives people reason to poke holes in the story. And the judge did comment that, that is relevant to Spacey's defense here, and that could be presented to the jury. So things like that are what's going to be disclosed. But it sounds like the vast majority of his confidential news gathering won't. But some of those text messages, did raise some eyebrows.
I would say I think you're seeing Kevin Spacey's lawyers already trying to mount this defense, and I don't know. I don't know. This is an interesting case. It is civil. It's not criminal, but it's important nonetheless. We also know that Kevin Spacey is facing criminal charges in London, where he's accused of assaulting 3 men between 2005 and 2013. Not necessarily this case will have an effect on it, but it's just another aspect of Kevin Spacey's ongoing saga.
One text message that, not to keep it going here, but one text message remember they disclosed was there was an incident between the writer Adam Berry and his father. They actually saw Kevin Spacey out at a restaurant a few years before this happened and had an unpleasant exchange with him. And it wasn't anything related to the story or anything like that, but the judge was saying, like, hey, this kind of past experience with Kevin Spacey is absolutely relevant. So it sounds like we're going to be hearing about that.
Meaning like you have a vendetta against Spacey. That's why you're going to go out.
Yeah, you'd imagine that's how it's going to be presented.
All right. Meghann Cuniff, thanks so much for coming on and writing about this. You can check out the article on lawandcrime.com. And Meghann, I know you're going to continue to follow this case once it heads to trial, and maybe we'll have you back on and we'll talk about what's happening in the trial. Meghann, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thanks everybody for joining us here on Sidebar. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. We'll speak to you next time.